stuck between a rock and a hard place. They say, I want my child to know who they are. I don't want them to grow up self-hating, but at the same time, I want them to be able to read and write on grade level. So again, we're lacking some things. I believe that there's 6 sciences that all black children need to be taught that I really don't see them be taught anywhere at the same time at any school. Okay? The Marcus Garvey School in California may be an exception. I haven't visited, but I do plan to visit on Friday, December 3rd. I'll be speaking in Los Angeles for the first time. Charles Drew University, which is our furthest western historically black college. Charles Drew, Friday, December 3rd, 5 o'clock, in case you have family over there in Watts at the Keck Lecture Hall. I'm going to try to make it a point to visit the Garvey School to see whether or not they actually represent a spectacle of hope when it comes to the education of our children. But what are these 6 sciences that black children need to be taught? The first one is agricultural. Black people, whether we have a PhD or an MD or a PsyD or whatever we have, many of us are ignorant about agricultural science. We do not know how to grow our own food. Our children definitely don't know how to grow their own food. And if you don't know how to make your own food, then you're automatically going to be dependent on your enemy's food supply. And you know that half of what our children eat is not even food, it's drugs disguised as food. Such as table sugar, such as caffeine, and of course the #1 killer, high fructose corn syrup, okay, which is leading to a rapid and excessive, massive diagnosing of what I refer to as absence of daddy from the home disorder, ADHD. And why do I call it absence of daddy from the home disorder? Because 75% of black boys diagnosed with so-called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder don't have a male father figure in their life. So is it a psychiatric problem or a black family problem? Okay, but the drug companies are making $50 billion a year because we keep on letting white psychologists give us professional opinions that we treat as facts in our children's life. So #1 is the agricultural. #2, we have to teach our children political and military science. Political and military science. Now let me say, for the sake of clarity, that these 6 sciences are not in opposition to the basic core 4 subjects that children must be taught. Okay, history, that's required, so it doesn't need to be listed. Math, reading, language arts, civics, those things are required, so I'm not listing them. These are the things that are not required that we are not including in our children's education. When we talk about political and military science, which are 2 sides of the same coin, and for those of you who study political science, I have a degree in it, or for those of you who study military science, you know that they're 2 aspects of the same thing. Okay, the strategy of taking from people stuff that don't belong to you. And so our children need to understand what the Trilateral Commission is. They need to understand what the World Bank is. Yes. They need to understand how Africa can be the richest continent, okay, resource-wise, but the poorest financially. How does that happen? They need to understand how homosexuality is being used as the weapon of choice in the population control war. Okay? We have a very low political IQ in our community. Some of us have high historical IQs. We can regurgitate Kemet, we can regurgitate Ethiopia, we can regurgitate Nile Valley, we can regurgitate the Dogon, we can regurgitate this and regurgitate that. But we must understand, as my ancestor Frederick Douglass said, that history is only as good as we can make use of it in the present. And I think sometimes many of us have turned the study of history, culture, and Egyptology into the world's 5th largest religion. Your history and your culture is not supposed to become a form of escapism from your everyday problems. But many of us are using our history as a form of escapism from our everyday problems. So what do we want to do about the mass incarceration of black men? Well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend the whole summer in Kemet. That ain't helping nobody. That's right. Nothing wrong with going to Kemet. Okay, I like to go to Africa myself, but when I go to Africa, I'm going to Africa to link up with Africans to see how we can put our heads together, try to overcome this nonsense that we're in. I'm not going over there seeking some form of historical aggrandizement. And to that end, we also do a terrible job of holding our scholars, our intellectuals, responsible for the fact that they do absolutely nothing but write books, give speeches, get paid, and we call them revolutionaries. That is not a revolutionary, that is a capitalist. A revolutionary sacrifices, a capitalist exploits. Check yourself on who you consider to be a revolutionary. Okay? Big mistake that we're making. So political and military science.